Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the quarterly report for July all the way up until September releases. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and today I'm joined by Mr. Gary A. Swaby. How's it going, Gary?
Hey, not bad, man. Hope you guys are good.
And we are also joined by Mr. Jake James Lugo. How's it going, Mr. Lugo?
I'm doing good, Rich. We got a lot of games to cover, talk about. We had an interesting quarter for this part of the year, so I'm ready to dive into it.
Absolutely, yes. Third quarter was pretty great, and of course we are now entering into the fourth quarter. So we will get into that a little bit later in the show. But obviously, this is all about the third quarter. So just to give all of you a quick reminder as to what this show is, we actually talk about three games we enjoyed for the third quarter of 2016. We talk about one game that we disliked around that same time period. Then we talk about one game we're looking forward to in Q4 2016 and one game that we think is going to be a disappointment. So I'm going to actually let you start off, Mr. Lugo. You can let us know what your first pick is for the games that released during the third quarter.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna kind of go out of order as far as the time frame when they released and such. But third quarter was pretty good. We had a good diverse release schedule of games over the course of July, August, September, which I think is great, which is awesome. Granted, we have a lot of the bigger titles coming out towards the fourth quarter, which is always the case, and there's a lot of highly anticipated stuff, some of which got pushed back to 2017. But we got some great games in the third quarter. So my first one I'm going to pick is I Am Setsuna. I think I Am Setsuna, phenomenal RPG. Granted, it has little issues here and there and stuff, especially for RPG purists out there. If you're fans of like Chrono Trigger, old school Final Fantasy games from the NES and Super NES days, etc. Overall, Tokyo RPG Factory, which is a division that was created by Square Enix to make RPGs specifically like this, that old school feel. This one, I Am Setsuna, borrows heavily from Chrono Trigger, right down to the battle system, like almost copy and paste. But there isn't necessarily anything like too wrong with that. Granted, it's very similar, maybe a little bit too similar at times, but it still plays it very good. It still has a well-designed battle system, has an interesting story, not the greatest, but it still has a really a good story that you could follow through that is essentially sad. But what I will say, though, the highlight for me for I Am Setsuna was the music. I love that piano music. That entire soundtrack just fits so well with the setting and the environment that the story takes place in. That piano with the snow falling, it's a cool visual with a cool atmosphere and a cool setup. I thought that was great. So overall, I really enjoyed I Am Setsuna. A little bit sad that it's not coming to Vita, because it was originally released both on PlayStation 4 and on PS Vita in Japan, but there was problems or some issues that arose with I Am Setsuna running on Vita, so it never came out here in the States. Maybe down the line, maybe they'll figure some stuff out, find a way to get it out on Vita, because I know that the trophy list still says that it's available on Vita. But regardless, though, great RPG. If you like good RPGs, or if you want to see, or want at least a good starting point to get into the genre, that's a cool game to play, because I feel like it does everything very well. Second game I want to bring up, the King of Fighters 14. I think this is a solid choice or a solid game release that came out during the third quarter, especially in the wake of Street Fighter V. Everybody's really divided about Street Fighter V in one way or another, whether you think it was the best Street Fighter release to date or the best fighting game release to date or not for whatever reason. King of Fighters 14 really hits that good sweet spot for how a fighting game should really be released now in this day and age. It keeps things classic and it keeps things very vintage with the way that it approaches the fighting, as far as like the 3-on-3 battles. It borrows really heavily from its roots, which I think is great. It's very different from the previous release. It's no longer 2D sprites. If you guys remember, King of Fighters 13 relied heavily on 2D sprites to differentiate itself heavily from what Street Fighter was doing at the time, and a lot of other fighting games have been doing it since then. But now this one, it takes the dive into the 3D models with the 2D gameplay, which I think works to its advantage, because it reminds me a little bit more so, however, of the Maximum Impact games. If you guys have ever played King of Fighters Maximum Impact on PlayStation 2, has a very similar aesthetic and similar kind of, design to it. The visuals aren't as good as Street Fighter V as far as like polish, as far as detail and stuff, but where King of Fighters 14 really excels and really shines is in its gameplay. I think it's the most the most solid fighting right now in that series currently to date. Very different than Street Fighter V. Granted, they both have similar approaches to their 2D fighting, but King of Fighters 14, I feel, has a much more stronger foundation of it. Again, keeping stuff classic, implementing a ton of characters into the roster, a lot of old faces, and then some new ones, which I think is really cool. It feels like a much more complete game than Street Fighter V, having a bunch of different modes available at launch. The online play was a little bit hit or miss, depending on where you're actually playing and depending on your internet connection, which might be a deal breaker for some people, but it was still good overall. It still had great local multiplayer, still had great single player offline content, and the multiplayer, when it does work, it does shine online. It's still pretty damn cool. Now, my final pick, which is going to come out of left field for a lot of you guys, I don't think that any of you guys really got this. Maybe Gary said this before, but my final pick that I think that was a great game, okay, of this quarter was Attack on Titan. Okay, now Attack on Titan, I have a lot of exposure with. I spent a lot of time playing Attack on Titan. If you guys didn't know, I wrote the guide for the game over on IGN. Okay, it took a lot of time to do videos and stuff like that, but I also reviewed the game. And overall, I think as far as translating what the essence of the series, the anime series and the manga is, in those mediums, transitioning it over or transferring it over to the gaming medium, I think worked out very well. It captures the essence of like swinging through the city and through the environments, that you see in the show. It's very intense. It's very action-packed. It feels really good to swing through the city. Now, let's be real for a second. There are some issues with the game. Like, there's some notable issues. I even think I said in my review that, there's some technical problems. There's some issues where things kind of get all mucked up, especially with all the enemies, clustering together and stuff. But overall, as a package, for someone that is a fan of Attack on Titan, I feel like this is the best game that you're going to get to date that's on the market. Now, there's another game that was on 3DS, which isn't all that great. I think it's Humanity in Chains or Chains of Humanity, something of the sort. Not as good as this game, however. The subtitle for the one on PlayStation 4, I think is also called Wings of Freedom in Japan. But overall, Attack on Titan, if you're into anime games, if you want an anime game that's done right as far as capturing what makes that show and that series so special, you're really going to find something really well done and well put together with Attack on Titan. So those are my 3 picks of some of the best that I saw this quarter. There are others, and I'm pretty sure there's others that other people could point out to, but those are the ones that stuck out to me for this quarter.
Before we move on, I just want to say, I definitely was surprised that Attack on Titan was one that came out of left field, because I know when we demoed it at E3, that wasn't necessarily the best demo, or I would say the best environment to play the game in. So that's great.
I remember I hated it. I remember telling you, I do not like this. And I remember the rep looking at us after we played, I was like, oh, this doesn't look good. And something that is one of those examples where when you play a game at an event and stuff, and you're only showing a small section of it, it doesn't really speak volumes to the entire package. Most of the time it is the case, and they're trying to show the best that they can. But there are some of those nuggets of those diamonds in the roughs that when you first play them like that, they come off one way, but then on final release, they're completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have experienced that many times. So that's exactly what that is. But great to hear that you enjoyed it. I got to check it out because I know that I do have access to it. So I need to make some time to play that as well. Oh, and I also want to check out King of Fighters because I actually played some of the other games in the series. So glad to hear that the latest one is actually good. So definitely check those out. If any of you have had a chance to play any of those games, feel free to let us know what you think about them in the comments section below. So next up, Mr. Gary A. Swaby, why don't you let us know which games you enjoyed the third quarter of 2016?
All right, we'll do. So the first game that I want to talk about is Star Ocean, Integrity and Faithfulness. Now, I went into this game with the correct expectations for me to enjoy it, and I feel like you have to, have a certain level of appreciation for the JRPG formula to really, enjoy this game. Now, is it the best JRPG? No, it's not. But, it doesn't have the budget of a Final Fantasy or a Shin Megami Tensei, Persona. It doesn't have that same kind of budget and that same, level of talent, working on the games and stuff. So I expected it to just be a straightforward, simple RPG that I could get into and enjoy and, have fun with the battle system. and it delivered in that sense. The story wasn't, it wasn't the best. The story is probably like the weakest point of the game, but as far as the fun factor and the battle system, I really enjoyed it. The battle system gets a lot more fun to use later in the game and stuff like that. So definitely had a lot of fun playing that, and it got me ready to dive into some more JRPGs that are coming out later this year. So that's my first pick. And the second one is going to be Batman Episode 2. Now, we had 2 episodes drop, within this quarter, but I really enjoyed, like, Episode 2 just escalated things to the next level. Like, it escalated things so quickly. Like, Episode 1 was more laid back, and Episode 2 was just pushed a button. Like, it moved things along really well, and there was a lot of nice action scenes in there that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go with that. I feel like it's, one of the best Telltale games in a while. I feel like the Walking Dead ones kind of started to get a bit stale, during season 2. And I hear the Borderlands one was good, but I didn't really play that. Obviously, Wolf Among Us was good, but that seems like so long ago now. And what we've had since then, Game of Thrones, I didn't really enjoy. So this feels like the best Telltale game in a long time for me personally. So yeah, I really enjoyed that so far, and I can't wait for the next episode. And the third game is going to be a game that I just recently started playing, actually, and that's Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Now, I was a big fan of Human Revolution, and so it was natural. It was a natural progression for me. And so far, I'm still like I'm not like towards the latter half of the game or anything, but from what I played so far, I'm already super invested in the game. The storytelling is, it's done really, really well. It does have its weaknesses, as does any game, but they've really done a great job polishing up the mechanics, and the visuals and everything like that when you compare it to the last game. And I just like that they don't do a lot of hand holding in this game. So there are times where like you're literally left to figure things out, and I like that feeling for what it's worth. Like sometimes it can be frustrating, but I do like being stuck in a situation and having many different possibilities of how you can get yourself out of that situation. And that's what Deus Ex is all about, because you have all these abilities, being an augmented person and everything. You have all these different abilities. You can level them up how you want to, and you can use them to your advantage. And I love that aspect of the game. So yeah, that's my 3 games that I enjoyed. You want me to do the one I was most disappointed by?
Hey, wait, hold on a second. Wait, hold on. I need to say my 3 first.
Okay, cool.
Don't worry. we'll talk about the disappointment soon enough. I just want to say, yeah, once again, 3 great solid picks. I haven't tried out Star Ocean. I reckon I will try that eventually, but no time soon, because there are way too many other games that I've been busy playing. But great picks all around. Now I'm going to mention my 3, and just for those that know ahead of time, we normally don't really know what anybody's going to pick. All of this stuff, we're just basically going off. So what you're seeing is the instant reactions. I guarantee that there definitely will be some instant reactions when you hear some of the stuff that I say later. But for now, the 3 games that I enjoyed most during the third quarter. Let me go ahead and give an honorable mention to Batman also, because I really think a lot of people, I mean, you really can't talk enough about this game, about what Telltale is trying to do, from the storyline to the way that they handle the fighting mechanics. All of this stuff is just solid. Now, obviously, it's not over yet. We still have 3 more episodes that we're going to be waiting for. But I would dare to say that this game absolutely, this makes me think that other developers are capable of making a good Batman game. So I'm going to be very interested to see how it ends. But it has to be an honorable mention, because the other games that I've been playing, these are games I've been going back to consistently ever since they came out. So first up, Forza Horizon 3. I actually reviewed this on our website earlier this month. Well, last, September, because we are in October now. Listen, I enjoyed Forza Horizon 2. And the funny thing about it, just to give people a little bit of a perspective, when Forza Horizon 2 came out back in 2014, I actually spoke to Microsoft about wanting to review, more so Sunset Overdrive, but I was presented with an opportunity to review Forza. I played the original Forza Horizon, thought it was great, but I just did not know if they would be able to allow us to review it. So once I got the opportunity to review Forza Horizon 2, I was blown away. A great driving game, great racing game all around. They had all the competitions, the Forza Festival, the Horizon Festival rather. So it was solid all around. So after I played that, I thought it was going to be very difficult for Playground Games to, build upon that success. But they proved me wrong with Forza Horizon 3. Like I said in my review, I know that we still have Drive Club VR, which is supposed to come out later this month. We also still have Gran Turismo, which is coming out next year. But in my personal opinion, Forza Horizon 3, this is the best racing game so far this generation, because it's not really just a racing game. I mean, sure, this time you are the Horizon Festival boss, and you don't really have the luxury of earning the ribbons like you were in Forza Horizon 2. So it's very different in those regards. But for the most part, what makes it so great is, again, the customization is a big part of this year's game. You're able to create races. The setting is in Australia, and you get to try, of course, different types of vehicles and such. Radio stations also, you have to unlock radio stations. And if you have access to Microsoft's version of Spotify, which is Groove Music, you can actually play your own music in the game also. But the biggest thing about the game is it's not really just a racing game. They do have a drone mode that they've added to it. So if you want, you can just survey all of the map if you wanted to in real time and not necessarily need to be driving. There's a lot of little things like that put throughout the game. So it really opens up your eyes to the experience. You see how beautiful the world is that they crafted in the game. And it's the same gameplay that you've experienced in Forza Horizon 2, but except for with the only difference is that you're now building up fans to get behind your festivals. So in my opinion, it really is the best racing game so far this generation because of the customization, because of all the stuff that I mentioned. But it really is just a great game in general. And of course, as everybody also knows, it's a Xbox Play Anywhere title. So if you have it on PC, you can play with your friends who have it on Xbox One. So overall, I have to say, without a doubt, the game is fantastic. It's been getting great reviews all across the board. I wasn't the only one that gave it a good review. So definitely is a game I would recommend that you should try out if you have an interest in a racing game. And even if you don't have an interest in a racing game, you may find yourself interested because there's so much to really explore in the game. So definitely my top pick for the month. The other two picks, NBA 2K17. Now, every time a sports game comes out, it's normally the same old. I believe in the past that when we had done a quarterly report in, last year, I said the NBA 2K16 was disappointing because of the simple fact that the Spike Lee mode that they had in the game, that story mode was just horrible. They corrected a lot of that stuff this time around. I mean, you don't really have a significant amount of choices in regards to the single player aspects of, when you're in the college and then you're going to the NBA. You don't have that many choices, just like you didn't have last year. However, the stuff that you get into after the fact, the storyline is great. Michael B. Jordan is actually in the storyline as well. He plays your teammate on whatever team it is that you end up getting drafted to. And then, of course, they do a lot more with the dynamics of you building relationships and, making sure you're staying grounded while navigating the positives and negatives of being a part of the NBA. So the game is pretty fantastic from that standpoint. When you move over to the GM mode, a lot more customization options. Of course, you can relocate the team anywhere you want, rebuild their change up the roster, of course, but then also change up the uniforms, create a new team. I mean, you could do so much in this game. So from that standpoint, it's a fantastic sports game. But also, for those that don't know, NBA 2K also has a weekly show that they have, every Friday or so, where it's hosted by a very nice looking host. Pretty much, basically, they give you different tips on how to play the game. They have interviews with different players that are in the game, so on and so forth. And it's also interactive, where they ask you questions during the game. You press a certain button and you're awarded currency for it that you can use on other stuff. So all of this stuff tells me that, man, hands down, this is one of the best basketball games that 2K has worked on in quite a while. If I was EA Sports and I was considering bringing back NBA Live, I wouldn't even bother doing that, because you're not going to get to this level of quality. With all the stuff that they put into that, they really have owned the fact that they know that they are really one of the only consistent basketball games that come out every single year. So I think without a doubt, this is the best game. There are a few changes in there, gameplay-wise, with crossovers, so on and so forth. But overall, the game is fantastic, solid. Definitely on my list for something that you should check out. And last but certainly not least, this pick may surprise some people, but not really if you know what kind of games I normally play. XCOM 2. All right, this is a game that when it got announced for PC, and it was announced as a PC only, I was pretty devastated, because those of you who know me know that I don't have a gaming PC yet. So I kind of felt bad. I knew I needed to get a gaming PC. I still intend to get one, but I was waiting to play this game in particular because I enjoyed the first one so much. I have spoken on the co-op several weeks ago about still playing XCOM because it was presented as a free game on Games with Gold. And the game is just, it's a game where you get hooked into it very easily. So when I finally played the second one, which came out this past week, that is a game that I've been playing pretty much every day since I purchased it, because it's the same game, the same core philosophy, mechanics. There are a couple of different changes in there. It's a lot more updated, obviously, better graphics. It's just a little bit smoother, crisper. And it requires, again, more strategy, because things that you would have thought that you could have done in the previous game, you can't really do in this game, whereas, you pretty much this time around with XCOM 2, it's a resistance force that is coming together to try to, overthrow the aliens and take back control. With the first game, you pretty much had, you already was established as an XCOM project that was trying to stop the aliens from invading, but obviously things did not go, the way that they needed to go. So when you start out this game, you have to establish contact with different people across the globe, different units, and then you have to go out there and figure out how to work together to stop the aliens and take back control of Earth. So the game is fantastic. Again, if anyone out there has played the original XCOM, you have a very good idea of what to expect from this game. But playing it on consoles has been fantastic. I've had quite a bit of great time with that. And that's why I think it definitely had to be mentioned. I know technically it's an old game, but technically, if you don't have a PC and you didn't play this when it came out on PC earlier this year, then it's still new to you. So definitely, absolutely recommend that you check it out. If you played the first game, or if you're interested in a strategy game that's really going to challenge you, this is a game you absolutely need to play. It's no doubt about it. So those are my 3 picks for the third quarter 2016. Now we're going to talk about the games that we obviously, one of the games we were disappointed with third quarter 2016. So I'm going to let Mr. Gary Swaby, why don't you let me know which game disappointed you first?
Okay, well, I'm not sure if this will be a surprise or not, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go with No Man's Sky. And this because obviously, before the game came out, there was all this expectation and all this hype and stuff. Like, people were expecting this to be amazing and stuff. Me, I knew not to expect that much of the game beforehand, But then, once I actually finally got to play it, there was a period of, around 3-4 hours or so where I actually quite enjoyed the game. Like, I really enjoyed the concept and the things that it was trying to do. I really enjoyed, having to collect these resources to fix your ship, and then, having to fly out and discover things, and, discover alien races and name things, and, stuff like that. But it falls so short because a lot of the concepts aren't fully realized. Like, they're so limited. And, considering Sean Murray, he promised all these things. He said all these things were going to be in the game, and they weren't in the game. But if they was in the game, it would have been phenomenal. And, it's just, for that reason, it's just such a disappointment, because this could have literally been like the game of the generation had they put, all the stuff they said was going to be in it in the game day one. It could have been great. Like, it could have been really, really good. And, it fell short. And it's really a disappointment, because I think I would have really liked it had it had all those things, because I enjoyed what I played for those first 4 hours or so. But after that, I realized, you know what, there's nothing more to this. It's just this, it's just what I've been doing. Like, it's just that repeatedly over and over again. There's nothing new. Like, it just repeats the same formula over and over. And that's a disappointment to me. Considering you promised this vast universe with all these different planets and stuff, but ultimately you just do the same thing over and over again. And once I learned what happens at the end, I was even more pissed off with that. So yeah, that's definitely going to be my biggest disappointment of the third quarter.
I'd like to make a very quick comment before we move on to Mr. Lugo's picks. Do you honestly think this could have been, I heard you say that this could have possibly been one of the best games this generation. Do you honestly believe that if it had everything, it really could have been on that level?
I really do. Like, I really do think it could have defined the generation if they, if everything was fully realized, and, you could do the stuff they promised and more. And, like, there were hidden secrets and, all that stuff. It could have really been phenomenal. Like, I see the potential, but it just didn't realize it.
Well, I'll be very interested to hear what others think about that. I think even if it had everything that people wanted, I don't know if it would have been one of the best games this generation. I just feel like the people who know what the studio made beforehand, there's no way that they should think these guys are going to make, these guys are just going to make an amazing game. But they also contributed to the hype as well. So I'm not making any excuses for them, but I just think even if it had everything that people wanted, there would have been some complaints that, oh, well, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that, because everybody is picky. They want perfection. So I think that this game would have been, panned either way. But that's another topic for another day. Let's hear which game disappointed you most, Mr. Lugo.
So I'm in an interesting position, because I think amongst the three of us here, I think I've probably played the worst games this year. I've probably played some of the worst games that have come out, not only in the third quarter, but just in the entire year overall. There's been some really bad ones. There's been some mediocre ones. But if I had to choose one that was the most disappointing, like the most shake my head type of disappointing, would be ReCore, to be totally honest with you. I totally would say that ReCore is the most disappointing. Now, here's the thing. Now, let's clarify something. It is not the worst release this year. Definitely not the worst release this year. I've played games that have been significantly worse, that have nothing going for them in the slightest compared to ReCore like that. The reason why I say ReCore was the most disappointing, because I like the concept of ReCore. I like the setup. I like the idea of getting a game that does a lot of nods and is a real big harken back to classic, platformers or collectathon platformers from back in the day, more specifically around the PlayStation 2 era of games. Not like the same vein where you get it where it's like Banjo-Kazooie or Super Mario 64 or anything of the sort, but like your Jack and Daxter type of games, your Ratchet and Clank type of games like that. That's what ReCore really looked like to me. And I know other people have said it in the past, but it's totally true. because it has a very similar setup with it. And as far as like, you know, having a story, being able to fire weapons and stuff, collecting various things to continue your progress from one point to the next, it's all there. All the right ingredients are there. But the problem was for ReCore was the execution. I felt like, you know, it started off okay and then just got significantly worse as I went through the entire game, and to the point where there's a lot of technical issues that are almost game breaking. I remember, I think I told you guys, I don't remember if I mentioned it on one of the co-op podcasts, but I think I know for a fact I told you guys beforehand, before we recorded, was that ReCore, I was playing towards like the later half of the game, like towards the very end of the game, and I ran into like this really bad game breaking bug that made me want to turn it off completely and not finish it. It was where I was going through one of these challenges where you have to make it just the end of this area, you know, where in order to get like these prismatic cores in order to move on to the next area. And I remember falling off a platform and just like, you know, dying and then having to respawn back at the checkpoint. But instead of the checkpoint triggering right where it was supposed to be at, it moved my character off to the side, like towards the end, falling endlessly off the edge. Like there was just no way for me to kind of like jump over to the side to trigger a different checkpoint and stuff. And it would constantly do that. There was no way to get around it. I was like, you know what? I'm done, because like I don't want to continuously play a game like that has this bad of like, you know, technical problems with it. Like these really bad issues that just are so obvious. Like it's amazing how nobody caught them during their testing phase. Like that's what I felt. That's how I felt when I was playing ReCore. But overall, again, that game had the most potential to be something interesting. I remember the hype that it had when we were at E3 this past June. Like we remember seeing that line of people like really wanting to play this game, and it was so long that we couldn't get a chance to do the demo. Like that's how cool ReCore looked before its release and stuff. But now, after having played it and after having reviewed it, that's probably my biggest disappointment of this year, hands down.
Well, I believe that is a valid disappointment also, because I mean, we know that a lot of time was spent on this game, but a lot of time was also spent on Mighty Number 9, and I'm pretty sure that both games suffered because of that. So yeah, I know there are a lot of people that had high expectations for ReCore. I was one of them. Now, I haven't played ReCore yet, so I am not in a position to talk about the game yet. I will talk about it at a later period in time, but I will say that just hearing that it did disappoint in some of the areas, that's not good, because you know, this is a game that obviously they want, you know, I know the goal is to make sequels, so I hope that there is still a goal to make a sequel to make a better game. But hearing that this game had a lot of issues is not good. And I did see the loading time. I saw a lot of videos online about the loading issues.
Definitely.
The loading to me that's unacceptable. I know they said they were releasing a patch to fix that, but that is something where they definitely should have caught that before they released this game, because that's a problem. So that's unfortunate. But well, it is what it is. And now this is the point where it's going to be rather controversial, but it has to be said. The game that I was most disappointed so far with the third quarter, without question, it is Destiny: Rise of Iron.
Oh,
and
whoa.
Let me talk about why this is. Okay, I played the
I gotta hear this. This is gonna be good.
yeah. See, now I played the Taken King. I actually enjoyed that quest, all of that DLC significantly, because of all of the new things they added. They actually proved that they could tell a good story, because we didn't get a real story in the original Destiny. You could say that there was a generic story where with just generic characters with just like the name, oh yeah, the Guardian or the Wizard, basic names like what the hell is this? So it's okay. Taken King was different. It was a lot more satisfying, when I actually got to get to the end, had the final boss fight. I enjoyed it. So I was expecting Rise of Iron to be at the same level, at the same quality, because I figure, okay, so now this is what they did when they took time to actually make a great expansion. I figured, okay, Rise of the Iron is going to be the same. So Rise of the Iron comes, and obviously, as I said on the last co-op episode, I've had issues getting to a certain level just to get to the point of actually playing the campaign. So I have had an opportunity to play some more of the game, get into see what some of these missions are all about, and I'm not really impressed with the direction of this particular expansion compared to the Taken King. I know that the way it ended was very abrupt. It just seems as though the quality is on a different level compared to Taken King. And my thought is that, you know, with another year in the Destiny atmosphere, they could have also delivered another great experience for people, but they just said, well, no, we're just going to do whatever we want to do. Obviously, you know, I don't know if the goal is to have any other DLC beyond this period. I know right now they are working on Destiny 2. And there are a lot of things that have come out in which they've said that Destiny 2 is going to be completely different. You won't be able to carry over your current characters into Destiny 2. And that it's also going to be on PC. Now, obviously, there isn't Activision hasn't confirmed any of this stuff quite yet, but I think they definitely need to change up a lot of things, because I don't like the fact that you have to grind so much just to get to a certain level. And then for the raid for this last one, of course, your light level needs to be, you know, it needs to be, I believe it's over
370. It takes a long time to get up to 370.
I mean, that's ridiculous with the grinding. Now, obviously, if you're a fan of Destiny, you knew what you was getting into with this game and with the expansion, because you like to grind, you like to do all this other stuff. But I just think for those that are jumping into the series for the first time, you know, because there are some people that picked up the original, like the full collection of Destiny when it came out, when this DLC came out. It's going to take a long time for them to get to, even if they are able to get to Rise of Iron. And I think that that's a little ridiculous that it would take that much. Again, you know, Taken King was excellent. I enjoyed Taken King. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. That's why I was excited for this game. But then I come to this and I see it's not really the same level of quality as you would expect. And to me, that's an issue. So I hope that when Destiny 2 does come out, that Activision and Bungie especially really takes the time to focus on creating something different from what they've already done, to improve upon the areas that people have complained about, to stop having these nonstop grind fests where people are able to find ways to farm and cheat and get the light level up. They wouldn't have to worry about that if they actually made a great game with a great story. And, you know, you had a lot more things going for it. So I would like to hope that, you know, the next Destiny game will be better. But at this point, you know, based upon when I actually see the footage, I may not even bother with Destiny 2 if it has anything close to what they have now. But that has to be by far one of the most disappointing things I experienced this quarter, because I had high expectations for that because of Taken King, and they did not live up to that. So Bungie, you need to do better next time, period. And for those that are fans of Destiny, I do apologize. I hope that you guys are enjoying the game. But man, to hell with Rise of the Iron. It's just not, it just was not a good experience. So let's move on now to this upcoming quarter. Well, this quarter that we're already in, the fourth quarter of releases. So I'm going to have you guys tell me one game you're looking forward to first. How about you go first, Mr. Lugo? Let us know which game you're looking forward to.
Now, again, this is another hard one because it being the final quarter of the year, this is when all the big ones, all the big games are coming out now. Like, it's very tough to just choose one. Now, again, you have to give nods. Like, I'm pretty sure me, Gary, and you were all looking forward to most of the same games that are coming out. I mean, you could give nods to, like, Pokemon Sun and Moon, Final Fantasy 15, World of Final Fantasy, Call of Duty, Yakuza 6. Like, there's a lot of games that are coming out throughout the entirety from now through December into 2017. But if I had to choose one, and I have to choose one that's like, you know, something that I think is going to turn out good, that might actually be pretty interesting, Gravity Rush 2. I'm going to say Gravity Rush 2. I played it at E3 this past June, got to mess around with it, and I think it's pretty good. I played the original Gravity Rush on PlayStation Vita. I got a chance to mess around with the remaster on PlayStation 4. And Gravity Rush 2 seems like it's looking good. It's playing good. It's a little bit more brighter and a lot more cleaner than the previous game. This is the one where I feel like Gravity Rush 2 is like hopefully going to appeal to a lot more people that maybe didn't even dive into the first Gravity Rush because maybe they didn't have a PlayStation Vita, or maybe they haven't yet picked up the original Gravity Rush on PlayStation 4. But this is, hopefully for me, after what I've experienced with it, I'm hoping that it catches on a little bit more so we can continue to get games for this series, because I think this will be another cool character besides a lot of the other characters that we're going to see start to go on the rise for PlayStation. Again, we got Horizon Zero Dawn coming out in February, and there's a lot of big talk about that game. Hopefully, by the time it's released, there's other games too that are going to be coming out to PlayStation. They're going to be huge and stuff. And hopefully, this will be one of those first-party titles that really kind of at least makes some sort of impact for PlayStation 4 owners, because I like what I've seen so far. So I'm expecting good things from it.
Yep, that's a good pick. I'm a little surprised you didn't say Last Guardian, but my guess is somebody probably is going to have some harsh words for that game. So we'll see about that. How about you, Gary? Which game are you looking forward to in Q4? Although I probably already know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm not even going to beat around the bush. It's Final Fantasy 15, because I've been waiting for this game for a long time. And, I've been hearing great things about it recently. Obviously, at E3, they showed a really bad demo. I played it myself. It definitely wasn't a good demo. It was a little buggy and stuff. But, since then, we've had PAX and we've had Gamescom. And there was, a new demo that they let people play at those particular shows and even after those shows as well. And I've heard nothing but great things about the game since then. People talk about like the customization and driving the car around to new places, and the fact that you can designate your guy to cook food for you, and those foods give you whatever he cooks gives you certain buffs for the next day and stuff like that. So it seems like it's going to be a really, really good experience overall, like in terms of an RPG. So I'm just really looking forward to it now. I understand everybody has their doubts because not a lot of people liked the 13 series, and people are expecting this to be like a repeat, and a lot of people are waiting for Final Fantasy 7 remake as well. And I think a lot of people just want this game to come out and get it out the way, kind of thing. But like I'm really looking forward to playing it like at this point, and I just can't wait. So yeah, that's definitely the game I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, hey, I fully understand that, and actually, I'm just like I'm sure a lot of viewers. I saw that pick coming from a mile away. So all I gotta say is, so if the game it falls short of expectations, I will hope that you plan on roasting it and Square Enix in full, because
oh, I will. I'll be very objective of the game. You can be sure.
I think we're all looking forward to that game in some capacity. Like, there's a morbid curiosity about this game from just about everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I could say the same thing, but there is a lot of people that are curious about the game. So we'll have to see how the final product turns out. Hopefully, it is good, because people have been waiting long enough to play this game. So if Square Enix drops the ball, listen, they deserve everything that they're going to get. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think a lot is riding on it too, like with the Final Fantasy brand name, because they really took a hit when so many people disliked the 13 series. They kind of took a hit, like the series, the name that they've built up after all these years and stuff like that. So I think a lot is riding on Final Fantasy 15, and it has to be somewhat good. It has to deliver for people to still want to play Final Fantasy games on a mainstream level. Because I think the core fans will always be there, but like Final Fantasy was a name that used to interest the masses as well. But I think if this game isn't good, then you're going to see a lot of the casuals not really care about the series that much anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we'll have to see. I hopefully it is good. So I will be sitting back like everybody else to seeing whether or not this game actually turns out to be good. So my pick, not really a surprise, but I'm going to give a disclaimer right now before I actually say what the pick is. I have been playing a game that is coming out next week. For those that pre-ordered it, that is. I will just tell you this right now. I can't talk about the game, but I will say this. Gears of War 4, that's all I'm going to say for right now. As for the pick that I choose for you know, the one I'm looking forward to most, hands down, is Mafia 3. And let me go ahead and say right now, it's not because of the little controversy that came out recently where they showed that you're able to you know, to take out KKK clan members in the game, because I know a lot of people made a big deal about that footage. It's not because of that. It's, I mean, that's going to be awesome as well, but the main point of the game is that, I mean, the game looks fantastic. I mean, this is a game where when I saw the reveal trailer, I was like, it looks interesting, but I didn't really know what to expect. Then when I went to E3 and I got to see the game behind closed doors, the presentation, I said, oh man, this game is fantastic. You know, pretty much just like Grand Theft Auto, the way they set up the maps with different districts, so on and so forth. And you are basically going around shutting down each district. You know, a lot of the crime heavy environments, you have to take care of that stuff, all to try to take out the mob. So as I start seeing more and more videos for the game and learning more about the game, I really think that this game is going to exceed everyone's expectations. One of the big things about it is that, you know, Hangar 13, this is a studio that I believe, I mean, I don't know anything about the history. I believe they came out of nowhere, though. But when I saw this game, I said, this is a great way to start a legacy, because a lot of people looked at this game and there's something about it that does capture your attention. Obviously, the footage I saw at E3, you know, I think that was still an early build of some stuff, because the AI didn't seem like it really was noticing. There was a sequence where they showed the main character, Lincoln, going after one of these mob bosses and sneaking into the house, that, you know, the place where he was at. But no one really was aware of the character able to sneak up next to people. So at that point, I don't think the AI was as refined as it is now, because I saw a recent video and the AI is a lot more, you know, they know what's going on around them. But I think this game is going to be a big deal because of the fact that people, they did not really expecting something like this to come out of left field and take control. You know, it's a different type of way to handle a game like this. It has a lot of social issues, all types of really serious issues they put into this game. But the main point of the game is to take out the mob and, you know, leave a legacy, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to this game. I think it's a game a lot of people are going to be talking highly about, because it deals with so much. It's kind of unique when you think about every other game that's coming out this fall. It's not like a Gears, and Gears is not bad at all. It's not another Battlefield, and it's not another Call of Duty. This is a different type of game altogether. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not it lives up to the expectations. And don't worry, I mean, I am going to be reviewing it for the site, but don't worry, if the game is bad or disappointing, you know, I'm definitely going to just be very open and honest about that. But for what I see right now, the game looks solid, and I cannot wait to play it later this week. So definitely my most anticipated game to look forward to. Now let's go ahead and let's address one game we think is going to be disappointing. How about you go first this time, Gary?
Yeah, it can only be one game really, and it's a game that, you know, people have been waiting for a very long time, around 10 years, like, you know, estimate. But yeah, The Last Guardian, and I feel like this will be disappointing to a lot of people because they're expecting it to be great when, you know, really it's just going to be a last gen game that didn't come out last gen. So I think everybody needs to have their expectations in check for this one. It's not going to be as great as you thought it was. From what we've seen so far, it doesn't look that impressive. And, you know, everything I've heard from people who have played it or seen it, you know, behind the scenes or whatever, it's not that great. It's, you know, it just is what it is. I mean, those Team Ico games, you know, they came out a very long time ago, and for the time they came out, they're great. They're great for that period of time, you know. But like this just looks like it's the same kind of game, but they haven't, you know, they haven't put in any work to make it, you know, more modern or bring it up to scratch for this generation. So it's, you know, it's just a game that's been lost in time, and like now it's been found, and now it's coming out on the PS4 pretty much. So I think this is going to disappoint a lot of people. And yeah, that's it, really. That's all I've got to say.
I just want to make a quick comment. Now, you opened by saying that this is a game that people have been waiting a long time for. Mm-hmm. Can't the same be said of Final Fantasy? Because people have been waiting for this game long too. So I think this game can also be disappointing.
Yep, and yeah, I've talked about this before because that game, Final Fantasy, has also been in development for a very long time. But the difference is with Final Fantasy that once they made that decision to turn Versus 13 into Final Fantasy 15, they actually completely reworked the game. So this isn't the game that you was going to get with Versus 13. This is a completely different game that they've repurposed for the PS4 and put a lot of extra development into. Whereas The Last Guardian is literally just, it's literally just optimizing it for PS4. Like, that's pretty much what they're doing. It's the same game, but they're just optimizing it for the system.
I got you. Well, fair point. We'll have to see how it turns out. I when they announced that it was going to be delayed once again, that's why I said, all right, yeah, this game probably has some issues, but we'll see. I mean, it could probably still turn out fine. Again, I know it has a very specific audience, so I feel even if the game is trash, they still will say the game is fantastic because they've been waiting a long time to have it. But I look forward to seeing whether or not it is successful. But I mean, I don't think I'll be picking up the never-ending story of the game this fall. But I look forward to the reviews because I want to see how it's received by everyone else. So, Mr. Lugo, how about you let us know which game you think is going to be disappointing?
I can now wait to see those Atreyu memes start popping up on the internet once this game comes out. But either way, yeah, I'm with Gary on this. I think we're kind of all, in some sort of agreement that this is probably going to be one of the most disappointing games of the year. I think it has a lot of potential to do so. And Gary hit the nail right on the head because The Last Guardian is a last generation game. This was a game that was supposed to be on PlayStation 3 a long time ago. And I think arguably even PlayStation 2 to an extent. But this is a game that has not changed. It's going to play exactly, well, not exactly, but it's going to play very similar to an older style last generation type of game. This is not going to resonate with a lot of the people that are just getting into the scene right now that have been really kind of like following gaming over the last few years that probably maybe back then when it was still first gestating and stuff didn't care about The Last Guardian, because I know there's been a lot of places and outlets that have talked about this game for a long time, but it's been over the years since it's been in development stuff. It's the same thing like with The Agent. Like, not a lot of people know what The Agent is except for like a lot of the people that follow the industry for a very long time and stuff. But with The Last Guardian, like what Gary said, it's got a very similar type of development. It's got a very similar story to Final Fantasy 15 and the way that the development, there's something went down with that development, and that's what's kept it away from the spotlight, kept it from releasing for so many years. And what people are going to want to do when this game comes out, they're going to get the game simply to find out what exactly happened during the course of that development. That's going to be the more interesting stuff that people are going to actually care about compared to what's actual context inside the game. Because at some point after this game releases, we're going to hear about what went down, possibly. I don't think it's going to come out of Sony in any sort of official capacity, but you're going to start hearing those developer interviews. You're going to start seeing those op-eds. You're going to start seeing those features start to come out at various different places where they tackle little tidbits of information about every single thing that went down behind the scenes with this development. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear from like Shuhei. We're going to hear from people over at Japan Studio, from Team Ico and stuff. There's going to be a lot of that. But as far as the game itself and whether it actually takes off, on PlayStation 4 when it comes out for a lot of people, it's like people are going to buy it like that. I don't think so. And the people that do get it, I think are still going to be disappointed, even though they're probably those same type of people that have been following this game for a long time. Again, it's that morbid curiosity is like, how does this whole saga end? Like, how does this whole behind the scenes story, about the development of this game come to a close? That's where I think it's really why The Last Guardian is going to be more significant with any sort of people that end up picking it up this holiday season.
Yeah, some very good points. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I look forward to seeing, like I said, I look forward to seeing the response that people have for this game. I think it's going to be disappointing to a degree because, yeah, the long wait, and as you guys already said, it feels like it's just this is a game that should have been out last generation. But I think it was a situation where Sony saw how successful they did coming out the gates this generation. So they decided that they want to give the gamers everything that they want, including the game that people have been wanting for a long time. So we'll see whether or not it's successful, but we'll have to see.
I want to make one more point before we get into your thing. There's another difference that we should know about Last Guardian, and especially when we're comparing it to Final Fantasy 15, because again, these are two games, like you said, that have been in development for a very long time, like around over 10 years, give or take, here and there. One of the things that Gary said about this, okay, that should be noted, we've seen and we've played Final Fantasy 15, more so that it hasn't been just played behind closed doors. The Last Guardian is the only game that I know of so far, again, maybe I could be wrong because of Tokyo Game Show and stuff like this, where it's only really been played behind closed doors by a select group of people. It hasn't been played by a mass amount of people. That's when you know that, with the few exceptions that have happened throughout, the last couple of years, that there might be something inherently wrong with this game. That this might be a thing where it's probably not going to turn out as good as we had hoped, because those same people that have been talking about their experience playing this game, behind closed doors, and again, being one of the few groups of people that have actually had hands-on time with it, hasn't been all that great. It's been very lukewarm to kind of mediocre from as far as their impressions and stuff. So that's something to keep in mind about Last Guardian.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, let me add on the other thing to go along with what you said. Another difference between Final Fantasy and Last Guardian is we've seen a hell of a lot more advertising for Final Fantasy than for Last Guardian.
Oh yeah,
I know I haven't seen any commercials for this game. Now maybe there will be some in the next couple of months, so we'll have to see. But I've seen a lot more advertisers for Final Fantasy at this point than I have for this other stuff. So I don't know, man. We'll have to see how that turns out. But I look forward to seeing how this saga ends, because I'm interested to see whether or not it lives up to the expectations. So we'll see. So this is going to be another controversial one. I'm gonna go ahead and give a disclaimer right now. So a game that I think is going to be disappointing, and I'm gonna ask people to just hear me out before you go crazy. I'm going to say Titanfall 2.
Oh, interesting pick.
Well, now let me explain why Titanfall 2. Now, obviously, this is a game. It has a particular audience. I reviewed the original Titanfall on the website. I might be reviewing Titanfall 2 also later this month. But I think it's going to be disappointing because, a lot of the things that people wanted in the original Titanfall is what we are getting now. The single-player campaign that we didn't get because the game was rushed because it had to get out at a certain time. Now it has a single player campaign, which is good. But EA has made the decision to release this game a week after Battlefield 1 and a week before Call of Duty, at the middle point of all of this. And I think that right there is definitely going to impact some sales, because I know a lot of people are not going to buy both of those games. If there's anybody that wants to get Battlefield and Call of Duty, you really think that person is also going to want to get Titanfall? I mean, this is a game that they possibly should have pushed out a little bit further, or had it come out, maybe it was sometime this month instead. But they said, no, we're going to have it come out, they could have had it come out in September. But no, they decided we're going to have this game come out a week after Battlefield 1, the same month. And that right there is going to be a situation where a lot of people are going to have to pick and choose what they want. I mean, if they possibly didn't learn anything from when, Tomb Raider came out the same time as Fallout 4. Now, obviously, two different games, two different audiences. So you really can't make a comparison like that to be, to use as your main strong point in this argument. But I do think that, this is another shooter, another first-person shooter at that. And it's going to be coming out at a time when, I just don't know. Now, I did see the single player footage because actually they showed it exclusively on Jeff Keighley's YouTube show a few days ago. I was not really impressed with what I did see. I said the game looks okay. It's just the same Titanfall. You know, I don't really know how much of this is new. So there's still more that I need to see about it. But I just think, you know, you can say that it will be a success because it's going to be, you know, on PlayStation 4 now. You know, PlayStation 4 owners will have access to the game, whereas the original Titanfall was only on Xbox and PC. So that's a good thing. But I still think it's going to be disappointing. It should, just because of the fact that, you know, you think about the timing of when it's coming out, you think about all the other games that are coming out around this game. And then also I have facts because when we did our little giveaway poll for the games that we wanted you guys to vote on for October, this game was the least voted on game compared to Battlefield, compared to Gears of War and Mafia. So I think that's pretty interesting that, you know, it just seems like, I mean, it obviously it still has some hype, still has some buzz, but I just seem like I haven't seen anything so new and so exciting about this game where I'm like, oh yeah, this game is going to be fantastic. Maybe I'm in the minority with that, but I'll be curious to see how it turns out. And as I already said, I am going to be reviewing the game, so I'll let you know whether or not it's the same experience as the first game. But I just haven't seen enough to be like, yeah, I think this game is going to be impressive. I know for those that are Titanfall fans, they're obviously going to love the game. They're going to pick it up no matter what. But I think overall, in terms of you know, potential sales, potential hype, all the hype, all this other stuff, I think it's going to be disappointing to a degree because again, to release this game, you know, around the same time as Battlefield. And, you know, all of the, you know, EA should be focusing heavily on Battlefield now because this is a game that everybody has been talking about they want to play. So I think to have these games coming out at the same time, you're giving the consumer an option where they're going to have to make a choice as to which games they want to get. I mean, that's going to be a very tough situation to have to make that choice because November, there's a lot of stuff coming out, not just Call of Duty. But that's just my opinion.
I completely agree. Like, I don't know why EA didn't just push that game back. Like, it makes no sense to drop it in the middle of like Battlefield and Call of Duty. Like, it just makes no sense.
You're going to split the audience big time. The other thing, too, I want to ask you, Rich, do you think some of that reception, especially what you were saying with the poll that we did, do you think also that's like fallout from the beta that they had recently?
You know what? Yes.
Because remember, the beta got a really bad reception. I remember people talking about that. There was a lot of people that were disappointed in that beta. Now, I played it on PlayStation 4. I didn't have that much of an issue with it, but there was a lot of people very vocal about their displeasement of it.
You're absolutely correct about that. I also played it, and I didn't really see any. I mean, it was the same tutorial mode that they had before from what I did play when I actually got into the game. I mean, it just felt like it was the same game. I didn't really notice anything that was so different about it where it's like, you know, they really are trying to evolve the series to a new level. So I just felt like, but I was like, okay, whatever. But then, yeah, there was a lot of backlash about people not liking that. And that was something that they actually addressed also when they showed this new footage, whereas they said that demo wasn't really the best representation of all that we've been working on, which is why they showed 3 clips of footage on that YouTube show, which I thought was interesting because they want to try to show as much of the game as possible to sell people on it. But I don't know, man. The timing, everything else coming out, to me, it feels like nobody is talking about Titanfall. A lot of people talking about Battlefield.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
And then they're talking about Call of Duty. But I haven't seen too many people talk about Titanfall. So I'll be very concerned for what happens with that game later this month. But I could be wrong, you know. But we'll find out sooner or later whether or not it's actually a good game. But I think it's going to be disappointing in some regards. That's all I would say about that. So any final thoughts as far as picks? You guys? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do think there's going to be another huge disappointment coming this fall.
Oh, here we go. Wait, what's that?
And this is, you know, it's technically hardware and software.
Oh no! Okay, I know what he's about to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, the PSVR. I feel like it's going to be a great device. You know, well designed. It's probably going to be comfortable. You know, I've actually heard that it is comfortable from somebody who has it. And you know, I'm sure it's going to, design wise, it's going to be a great device. I just don't feel like it's gonna deliver this fall. Like the software that they have coming out for it, it's just a bunch of tech demos and stuff. Like the Batman game. Like I remember hearing the Bombcast guys, the guys at Giant Bomb, talking about this game, and from the way they described it, it sounds awful. And I feel like a lot of the games that are gonna have, you know, VR added on, like even Final Fantasy and Call of Duty, I feel like it's gonna fall short, and it's just gonna feel like a rushed demo just to, you know, just so that you have these big names associated with VR so that people will buy the device. You know, that's the only reason that they've put VR into those games. And ultimately, I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of stuff that's built from the ground up with VR in mind. And I feel like it's just going to be a way to, you know, show you the potential of the device and what they can possibly do in the future, but it's not going to fully deliver on that. And so I feel like a lot of people will be disappointed, and that's not a good thing because a lot of companies are putting money into this whole VR concept. So it needs to be a big hit, and it needs to be a big hit right away, because if it comes out this fall and people just see it as a fad, they just start to see it as, okay, my family's coming over, I'm going to show this VR headset for 10 minutes or something, and then I'm never going to touch it again. Like if it's one of those type of things, that's going to be very bad for the industry. And Sony doesn't have a good track record when it comes to, you know, supporting their peripherals and stuff like that. So I am very worried in that regard.
Well, allow me to say I do have a response to this. Well, let me say first and foremost, you make some very great, valid points. And I also am concerned about it because I go back to the Vita. I bought that Vita at launch, and I was not happy with the way that the device has been supported up to this point. Obviously, there are a lot of JRPGs and so on and so forth that are on that did come out for the device. But if someone doesn't really play those type of games, then what else are they going to play? And that's why I said, you know, I felt like I needed a lot more first party support. So I do have a bit of caution with PlayStation VR. Now, with that said, I did try PlayStation VR at the Call of Duty event last month for the Jackal game, and the headset is very comfortable. I would say this is probably the best headset that I've wore, and I tried the Oculus Rift, and I've tried the HTC Vive, and this is the most comfortable headset that I've tried of all three of those. So the headset is solid, no doubt about it. But this, as you said, it comes down to the you know, whatever software comes out, the support for that is what will be, you know, what this is all about. Now, as for the Arkham game, I know that Rocksteady has said that this is their last Batman game, so I think off of that statement, a lot of people are going to be hyped for the game, even if it is trash. I don't really believe, because, you know, we didn't get a chance to play it at E3 because the lines are so ridiculous. So I don't really know what to expect from the game. I would assume that, you know, maybe it'll be okay, but I can't talk about any of this stuff because I didn't play most of these games. But I do hope, I would like to hope that Sony, though, they have to know software is king. They got to have some great software for that device. So we'll see how it goes. But I do agree that, you know, until I actually see and play the stuff, I really can't really say too much about it. But what I will say is that, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with PlayStation VR because, yeah, it's coming out $399 later this month, actually 2 weeks from now. So I'll be very interested to see what the response is. And then again, for those that, you know, if they wanted to get a PlayStation Pro, that's coming out in November. So already, if somebody wants to get both of these things, they got to spend $800. And I think, again, there's a situation where some people may pick and choose. You know, if I was to get PlayStation VR, that's fine. I already have a PlayStation 4, but I'll be very interested to see what the overall response is to this. I don't know if it's going to be a hot selling item yet. But that's a very good observation because I have no idea what's going to happen with that device. The hardware is solid, but the game support, I can't say a lot because I haven't played any of those games, but I am curious to see how that stuff is going to turn out. So any final thoughts or final things you guys want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the VR stuff goes well, man, because like I heard that the Vive sales went down as well and stuff like that. So this is going to be the cheapest headset. So I'm just hoping that, you know, they're able to um bring people into this whole VR idea and the concept, and let them know that, you know, this is something that's going to stay, because there are companies that invested a lot of money into this whole VR concept. So
Hmm.
I just hope it
I think
does well.
I think it's going to take time. It's not going to be a big thing out the gate. And the reason why, and I don't think that the comparison to PlayStation Vita is all too apt. Like, I understand the logic behind that, because Sony sometimes doesn't. They're not always all in with a lot of their peripherals. They're always in with their consoles that they develop themselves, but like all the add-ons and everything like that, sometimes they're hit or miss. What makes this different, though, is because this is a new way of playing games. This is a totally different approach to actually experiencing a game. It's not just controller in hand anymore. Now it's taking another step towards being fully immersed in this type of experience. Now, obviously, price point is a huge deal for a lot of people diving into this thing, especially if they don't already have a PlayStation console like that. But also, a lot of the stuff with it being a new piece of technology, or at least a new type of piece of technology that is going to change the way that we experience games like that, you're not always going to get the best type of software out the gate. So saying that, even though that software is always king when it comes to consoles for the most part, I don't think this is going to be something that really kind of like hits the ground running right out the gate. It's going to take, like, I feel like PlayStation VR, or just the VR trend in general, you're not going to hear a lot of crazy great things until maybe it's a halfway into next year. And part of that's going to come from the media that actually have their hands on the PlayStation VR, have had time exposed to PSVR, playing the different titles that are available there and talking about it to their audiences and stuff. And then later on, it's going to come from people actually going to like a Best Buy, a Target, a Toys R Us, maybe a GameStop, to play these actual games or these demos that they have on display with the actual kiosk like that. It's going to be a very slow burn for VR in general, especially PlayStation VR. I know that from experience. Like, I think I'm the only one out of the three of us now that's played a game that's like a true PSVR game, right? Like, I know, Rich, you said you played PSVR or whatnot, but did you play like Res Infinite, Rigs, or anything of the sort like that?
No, I played the Call of Duty game that is going to be available for people who have PlayStation VR on day one.
Okay, so the game that I played, because I played two games so far with PSVR that were, one of them wasn't a pure VR game, the other one was. I played Res Infinite on PSVR, and then the other one I played was Thumper back at was it PAX East. Now, from what I got from that experience, it's pretty cool as far as like being immersed into it and stuff, but this is still just the beginning of being able to like really kind of get used and get situated with what VR is going to be like as far as like a core experience to the common person that plays video games. I don't think that type of audience, the guy that usually just goes out and buy a $60 game whenever he can, especially during the holiday season, is going to be the type of audience this is geared to at first. Like over the next 6-7 months or towards the end of next year or so, I think that's when you're going to start seeing VR start to pick up. Because I always said, and I'll stick to these guns, that VR is for gaming is just a testing ground like that for other applications. I think that there's bigger and better things for VR that's beyond just playing video games like that. But as far as it being successful, not like, super popular and being like a gargantuan like sale type of thing, but as far as being successful for actually making some sort of impact in the gaming space, it's going to take time. I don't think we should look at it in like the traditional sense of like, okay, new piece of hardware that's from a particular company or a new type of system and stuff, that if it doesn't have the lineup from the very get-go, that it's going to be a complete failure and stuff. I don't think we could look at it in the same way anymore with this type of technology. But still, that's just my outlook on it. Again, I feel like I still need more exposure to PSVR, and I definitely need more exposure to the Oculus and the Vive, to get an idea of the landscape of like what VR is going to be like amongst all these different companies. But from what I could tell from my personal experience with hands-on time with PlayStation VR, I feel like it's just going to take some time.
Yeah, and just to add one last thing to that topic, yeah, as you said, we obviously need more hands-on time with PlayStation VR. I spent a day playing nothing but HTC Vive and Oculus titles when I was at the Upload VR offices. Shout out to Mr. David Jagno. And I can tell you right now that I enjoyed the Oculus. I mean, I enjoyed both of those devices. but it still was a little bit of discomfort. And then when I tried the PlayStation VR, I mean, the hardware is solid. There's no doubt about that. It's very comfortable. Different ways to adjust it as well. So the hardware is solid. You know, I'm just waiting to see now what are the titles that are going to be, because I know Riggs is a title that a lot of people have spoken heavily about. So I'll be curious to see learn more about these games, get to try it out more extensively, and then I'll give my full impressions and thoughts on everything that they have to offer, as well as to get an idea of what they have to offer in the future, which I'm pretty sure they will also talk about that at PlayStation Experience later this year. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not saying that that I won't really fully try it out or fully invest into it. I just want to see a lot more of what it has to offer before I say, you know, okay, I have to make an informed decision about it. But so far, I'm interested and intrigued. But we'll see where that goes. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. So any final thoughts, topics from you guys that you would like to throw out there before we get ready to wrap up?
That was it from me.
Same, I'm good. I think we pretty much touched on like everything that's coming up in the next quarter.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to I will not, as I said already at the beginning of this show, I will definitely not be afraid to talk about some stuff that I am looking forward to that was disappointed. But we'll have to see if it does turn out to be disappointing, you know, when we do this again for fourth quarter. But until then, I mean, that pretty much wraps this week's episode of the Quarterly Report. The co-op will return next week. For those that may have wondered why there wasn't a co-op, yeah, it'll be back next week. And at that point, we'll also talk about who won the Mafia 3 giveaway, because that contest is still going on. So if you do want a chance to win Mafia 3 for the PlayStation 4, make sure that you, you know, pretty much enter now, because by the time this gets posted up tomorrow afternoon, this is going to be gone. So you guys definitely should enter if you want a chance to win. And we'll be doing more giveaways in the future, obviously, but that's pretty much it for this week. Any final shout outs from you guys? How about you go first, Mr. Lugo?
Just shout out to all the people in the chat. Shout out to everybody that's been watching the videos that we have on the YouTube channel. Everybody leaving comments. The patrons, obviously, your guys' time, your support always helps us out. We're always trying to provide great content for you guys. Definitely, everybody, get excited over the next couple of weeks, because we got some good stuff that's coming very soon. Again, we got some games that we're embargoed on that we're going to be talking about at some point. We have some stuff we're waiting on that we'll be able to provide more content for. That very big stuff you guys are going to look forward to. I can't wait. You guys should get excited. But thank you, everybody, showing support, love to us, comment sections, the YouTube comments, and everything else. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And how about you, Gary? Final shout outs?
Yeah, I want to shout out everyone who was in the chat. That's Big Daddy, Illustrated DEO, and Reggie Butler. Shouts to you guys. And also to our Patreon supporters, M. Collins, Sean Gority, Michael Hatcher, Stephen Ferron, Mauricio Aguilar, and Himdil. Shouts to all you guys. And that's pretty much it.
Sounds good. Thank you all for your continued support, and we will be back next week to talk about plenty of other things. Last but certainly not least, if you want to know more about Gears of War 4, my review actually drops on October 6th around 12:01 Pacific time. So stay tuned for that. As I said, I can't talk about Gears of War, but I'll just say for now, yeah. Just look for it. That's all I'm going to say. We'll talk to you guys next week.